on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot.
You're listening to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How you be, Dylan?
Oh, no, the bigger question is, how are you?
I'm just dandy.
Ooh.
Yep.
Say it with conviction.
I'm just dandy.
You know, I'm still riding the wave, baby.
You're riding the wave, huh?
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, right?
Well, they don't know what we were talking about.
Well, I'm going to let them know because I trust our listeners.
You
and
do?
get just a little bit personal.
Okay.
Yeah, you ever have great sex with your partner and then go to work or just have a really good day the next day no matter what you're doing and you're just like on cloud nine?
You're walking on sunshine?
Yeah.
Whoa! And it's time to feel good.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that when Katrina and the Waves like jammed that song, they were thinking about like a great sex buzz?
I do.
Yeah?
Because it nails it. It nails the feeling.
Yeah.
And I had that yesterday.
You did?
I had that little extra oomph in my step.
Who have you been fucking?
Okay.
Jeez.
My wife.
Okay, well, that's inappropriate.
Don't you remember?
What if your grandmother's listening to this episode?
Well, that's not true. Both my grandmothers are dead.
Maybe they're listening from heaven, Dylan.
Well, that's true. They may hear everything.
They'd be ashamed of you.
Well, no, they'd be like, that's my grandson. I taught him well.
Oh, Lord.
And then I could also, if I can converse with my grandmother, then I can talk about when they used to have the same issue when they banged my grandpa. All right, moving on.
Okay, in true crime news, now this is a strange story. Have you ever seen the Food Network show called Worst Cooks in America?
I haven't seen that one.
Well, I guess the premise is they take these individuals who are terrible cooks, they put them on the show, and they can win money.
I might have to watch it
Step
now.
up their cooking game. Well, it's too late, Dylan, because it's been canceled after one of the show's competitors was arrested in the death of a child.
Oh, no.
South Carolina authorities charged Ariel Robinson, she's 29 years old, and her husband Jerry Robinson, who's 34, last week with homicide by child abuse in the death of their 3-year-old adopted daughter, Victoria Smith.
Oh, my God, that's sad.
So the Cooking Channel has removed season 20 of The Worst Cooks in America, which saw Ariel take home the top prize.
So is if they improve, is that how you keep staying on the show? I'm
think
sorry.
So.
Not that this is bigger than a child murder.
Well, I am not sure because I do like some of the Food Network shows, but I haven't actually seen this. But I think the premise is, if you can improve, if you're a terrible cook and you can improve and learn and whatever, then you can, make it to the end, win a prize kind of thing. No, You can correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but I think that's the premise.
Well, that sounds about right from the title. But yeah, so obviously I'm sure more information will come out, but sounds like, I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but death by neglect at the very least.
Well, she's from Simpsonville, South Carolina, which is actually not that far from us.
It's not.
Right? And the Simpsonville Police Department provided a press release that said the young victim was admitted to Prisma Health Richland Hospital and was pronounced dead earlier this month after authorities found the child unresponsive. And investigators concluded that the victim's death was the direct result of physical abuse.
Well, there you go.
So both Ariel and her husband Jerry are being held without bond at the Greenville County Detention Center. And if they're convicted, the couple could face sentences of up to 20 years to life in prison.
Yeah, see, here you have your child, your adopted child, no different than your child. It could be your stepchild. It could be a kid that you live with in the house that you look after all the time. You're responsible for them, their well-being, their care, their safety. So I honestly think that this is not that far below premeditated first-degree murder in my book. I'm sorry, if you're abusing a child at all, let alone to the point where it could impact them being alive, then yeah, that's a pretty shitty thing to do.
According to WYFF News, she was a former upstate teacher, and she's had her teaching certificate suspended because of this situation.
Well, she should.
The State Board of Education has suspended her teaching license. She has other adopted children. And it seems that, according to these arrest warrants via this article here, they inflicted a series of blunt force injuries to the child.
I mean, that's no different than beating someone, trying to make them die.
So
I'm sorry.
She's a former middle school teacher. She hasn't worked as an educator since 2019. Yeah, and I haven't seen the show, but people described her personality on the show like she's a stand-up comic, and she was really funny, engaging, like kind of like an audience favorite.
Really?
On the cooking show.
I thought you were going to say they thought she was kind of a butthole and like, just overbearing or something like that. But no,
she
really.
was like a wannabe stand-up comic, does the like amateur circuit. People thought she was really funny on the show. So this is kind of come as a big surprise. It's amazing to me, though. There have been several of those reality show, especially the cooking show, scandals. And we even covered a case, our disappearance of Zeb Quinn case. We talked about a woman who was on the Food Network that was murdered.
Yeah, the couple that was murdered. Yeah.
And she was a contestant on that show.
Yeah, that's a crazy. So if you haven't heard our Zeb Quinn episode, you should go back, and that's one of our earlier episodes. Audio, we were still working on it back then. But it's a very interesting case, a very sad case. The one young man went missing, and then a couple was killed after that. But yeah, you should go back and check that out. But yeah, it's it seems to be a lot of people from. It's not that hard to get on the Food Network, and I guess there's kind of a food scene here in Asheville. So I see chefs and things of people like that make it all the time on there.
Yeah, I had a friend from the Navy actually go on to become a chef after she was discharged from the Navy. Was a photographer alongside me, and we went to school with her. She was on the Food Network. She was on a cooking show. And then I have a friend who's a chef locally that's going to probably compete on Chopped. Like, he's gone through the whole interview process and the vetting process.
Yeah, now I must say, I was thinking about this today, listening to a Dateline or something, and the prosecutors, I think, you have to have it this way for our justice system to work, but sometimes they get ideas in their head that just aren't right. The investigators, the prosecuting attorney, or the DA, and they're not right, but they have this theory, and that's their whole case, and that's how they, use the justice system against people. So I guess we must say they're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
because they could have it wrong. It could be some terrible kind of accident. I was listening to another podcast about, if I can only remember what that was, but this was about times when Child Protective Services
got it wrong,
had like targeted parents or couples, and it's very, very, they got it very, very wrong. So that being, we must point that out. They could be wrong. It might not be what the investigators think it is.
Absolutely. We don't know, but we'll follow that story. And I thought it was interesting, one, because, it's a reality show. A lot of people are probably familiar with it. And secondly, because it's like somewhat local news. It's not that far away from us.
Yeah, and they didn't even mess around. They just pulled the whole, you're not going to see her on that show on the Food Network. They got rid of it, huh?
Let's give a shout out to our patrons, Nelson and Megan, for supporting the show at patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. They make it possible for us to do what we do.
Yeah, the patrons fuel the podcast, keep us going, help us absorb cost, and we really appreciate it.
If you would like to sign up, again, you just have to log on to www.patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. If you subscribe for the entire year, you get a pretty significant discount.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of people take advantage of that, and it seems to be a pretty damn good deal.
And there is so much content. So make sure, if you love the podcast, you're bored, you want extra episodes, check out Patreon. Are you ready to get into today's case, Dylan?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I am. This is a wild story. And in the beginning of it, I'll say these people make the whites of West Virginia, if you've happened to have seen that.
The Wild and Wonderful Whites?
Yes, of West Virginia look like Girl and Boy Scouts and upstanding citizens.
Like they should be members of the Junior League?
I'm telling you, the whites were kind of funny, and they weren't they weren't dangerous. They were just kind of fucking off their own life, doing what they wanted. But these people, it's another story.
They are, the only word that comes to mind is just trash.
It is trash.
These people that we are talking about today, they're just fucking trash.
And
there's no way around it.
This group of people are trashy people, and everyone knows, and no matter what city or town you live in, you know a family like this, generational trash, if you will. And this is by no means, this is not against the whole area or whole state, but this particular group of people are pure trash, so hold on.
I even feel like we need to give a trigger warning because this episode contains graphic depictions of violence and sexual assault. It is not for the faint of heart.
Oh my gosh.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Are you buckled in?
Yeah, I got my little seat over here.
Okay. A nude See, I just fucked that up. A nude femur. A nude female body was found by train operators on the tracks of the CSX Trestle Bridge over the Blanchard River in Findlay, Ohio, on Sunday, March 27th, 2011, around 2:07 a.m. Initially, the train's operator thought perhaps it was a deer on the tracks. The train and 8 cars passed over the body. When the operator checks under the car, he realizes it's a woman. She appears to be severely injured, bloodied, and not breathing. He phones 911 for help.
So you got this engineer, which I think would be a really cool job, or conductor, rather, and he just catches a glimpse of something on the tracks as he's moving along, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure deer and things like that are a common occurrence along the tracks.
Soon emergency services and law enforcement appear on the scene. It doesn't take long for an officer to identify the woman as 24-year-old Vera Jo Reigle, a name not unfamiliar to Findlay Police Department. He recognized her upon sight from the multiple domestic violence calls to 300 Center Street, which was just a few blocks away from where she now lay dead on the frigid spring morning. Temperatures were below freezing.
Oh, wow.
However, Vera was not a criminal. Vera was a victim, a vulnerable human who would be failed at every turn by the system put in place to protect her.
That's what struck me in this entire story, and I'm sure people will agree. The system, on many levels, failing once again. And it's a repeated theme in some of the stories we tell.
It's at every level in the story.
Yeah, and this is every single level. It's almost, you couldn't have done it any more efficiently if you were trying.
Well, it's as if they were just not trying at all.
Yeah.
To help this woman.
Or trying to fail this woman. Yeah.
Vera Jo was born to parents Verna Gardner and Willard Reigle on July 11th, 1986 in the town of Findlay, Ohio. Some might describe Findlay as like an all-American town. It's about 40 miles south of Toledo. It's the second largest city in northwest Ohio with a population of around like 41,000. Findlay is home to some major corporations and distribution centers, like Kohl's Department Store, Campbell's Soup, and Best Buy. Cooper Tire and Rubber Company is headquartered in the city, and Marathon Oil maintained an office there until 1990. So it's home to decent jobs, quiet neighborhoods, and there's even a university.
Yeah, I'd say you can make a pretty decent living there in Findlay.
Life for Vera Jo was troubled from the start. Vera had an intellectual disability, which made thinking difficult and impeded basic life skills. She was also diagnosed with ADHD. Her young life was horrific. At the age of 11, Vera was raped by her own father, Willard. He would be charged with 4 counts of rape of a male and a female child and sentenced to 20 years in prison for being a violent sexual predator. Another resource added that Vera was also sexually abused by one of her mother's boyfriends.
So that poor thing can't win.
According to some reports, Vera had a strained relationship with her mother. And that makes sense considering her mother seemingly didn't protect her at all from predators. Though learning was hard for Vera, through the help of special classes in school, she managed to graduate from high school in 2005. Teachers described Vera as a quiet, reserved student who was obedient to a fault. Like, she would literally do anything you told her to do.
Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah, even, like you said, they would say, we wish she kind of stood up for herself. If someone just does that constantly, even if they're being cooperative and that's what you want, you can see that in them, that the wrong person, the wrong type of person was to be around them, that they could be manipulated.
To those who knew Vera, she was sweet and loving, a gentle but outgoing young woman who enjoyed classic country music, singing along to her favorites, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton. She loved dancing and participated in Special Olympics events. But Vera's struggles were not in her rear view. Vera had known Cheri Brooks since she was a baby. And as a matter of fact, Vera's parents were neighbors with Cheri at one point. Cheri Brooks was known in Findlay. She was the matriarch of a disreputable criminal family who were self-proclaimed Crips gang members and would be described by several, including her own children, as the female Charles Manson.
What a great way for your kids to view you.
Can you imagine your own child describing you as a Charles Manson type?
No.
What the
That's
fuck,
not
right?
good. That's not a good impression you've left on your kids.
Cheri, often called Sugar Babe, was incredibly manipulative, a habitual liar, and an all-around shitbird, as you like to say, Dylan.
This is the queen of the shitbirds, and she has put together an entire nest that is very effectively produced shitbird offspring.
Sugar Babe was a nickname that she had been given by her father, who was also her molester. And she was placed into foster care at the age of 3 after having been sexually abused by her dad. When she was 16, she returned home to live with her mother. Cheri's first 5 children were taken from her by social services, like one by one.
So as she had the babies, essentially, they come in and took them for whatever reason.
Yep. Joshua, Maria, Scotty, Michael, and little Cheri were all taken away from her due to neglect and sexual abuse. Like, and again, I gave you guys a trigger warning because this is such a fucked up thing, but I felt like it was important to talk about. Someone actually caught Cheri performing a sex act on one of her male children.
Caught her right in the middle of the act.
Yes, like someone was going to pop by her house. There was like noise in the background and she couldn't hear the person calling for her. They came in the house and actually caught her in the act.
I'm not sure how I would react to that, but I'm pretty sure I would probably get physical with the person, no matter who they were to me. Just seeing a child harmed like that would take me to a special place. I would probably hurt that person, honestly, out of reflex.
I think most people would not react well to viewing or observing that behavior. Cheri was obsessed with her baby girl, Maria. Cheri loved baby girls. But when Maria was 1 year old, it was discovered the child had been raped. After leaving the doctor, Cheri sent Maria home with her mother, which would be Maria's grandmother. And this was very out of the ordinary, as Cheri wouldn't let anyone touch this baby girl.
So she was all about girls. She wanted a girl. She wanted a baby girl.
She wanted a baby girl so badly. She kept having boys, finally gets the baby girl, and she is obsessed with her.
Like, she would even dote on other people's baby girls.
Yes.
Like, to the point where they'd be like, this is almost weird.
Like, you should probably get away from my kid.
Right.
Yeah. So her mother thought it was very strange that here's Cheri saying, why don't you take Maria home with you? Because Maria wouldn't let anyone pick this baby up, hold the baby, feed the baby, nothing.
And her mom already had one of her male children who was little as well. She would keep the baby boy for Cheri, right?
Right. But was never allowed to have Maria overnight. So her mom thought it was very odd. But she took the baby home. The child spent the night with her grandmother, and the following morning, the sheriff's office knocked on the door. Deputies took the baby away. Rumors would circulate within the extended family that Cheri Brooks continued to have a sexual relationship with her own father into adulthood, even after marrying her husband, Kevin Sr.
You know, she was a victim as a child. But here's the cyclical dysfunction. This just,
Oh, it's a multi-generational dysfunction that carries over.
Well, I mean, just even to tell people to call you Sugar Babe, which is a nickname her father, who molested her, gave her. I mean, a lot of people in their time of healing and stuff like that the last thing they would want to hear is a nickname given to them by someone who molested them, father or not.
Absolutely, Dylan. Let's go ahead and pause for just a quick moment, take a break, and we'll be right back. And of course, if you support the sponsors who support the show, that helps us out. Right, Dylan?
It's true.
If Cheri Brooks was already unstable, losing her daughter really sent her over the edge. She was consumed with having another baby girl. As a matter of fact, when she was neighbors with the Reigle family, Cheri tried to take over the care of baby Vera. Eventually, Verna grew tired of this meddlesome woman and let her know, you are not Vera's mother, I'm Vera's mother.
Yeah, see, for someone to have to point that out to you, tell you that to your face, means that you're being very strange or overbearing. I mean, yeah, that's weird.
Eventually, as I mentioned, Verna grew tired of this. She told Cheri, you are not this baby's mom. And Sugar Babe, I should mention this part as well, she openly admits to having had an incestuous relationship with her cousin, Daniel Bixler Sr. And he actually fathered her son, Scotty Emmons. She calls them kissing cousins.
And she thinks it's funny.
She thinks there's nothing wrong with it, that it's funny.
She doesn't hide the fact. She doesn't, shy away from it. She's just like, yeah, that's my cousin. I used to call us kissing cousins.
Yeah. Well, apparently, Dan Sr. left his first wife to be with his cousin Cheri. Scotty says his mother molested him when he was a child. So not only is she fucking her cousin and they have a child together, but she's molesting that child.
Yeah, she never dealt with her own molestation properly or in a healthy manner. Obviously hasn't sought therapy to truly heal, because she's went, you can go one of two ways. You can either be freaked out by sexual contact from anyone, or you can become the predator yourself after being molested, especially at a young age.
Is that your professional opinion?
Yeah, and I'm sure I screwed that up, but that is my professional opinion.
Dan Sr. stabbed his wife's lover and led police on an interstate chase. So as you can see, we're dealing with some real gems here. A dysfunctional, demented, cult-like family who have no qualms incorporating violence as a solution to any problems they face.
That was another thing. They were as a group described by others, not just her own children, saying she's like the female Charles Manson, but other people would be like they were almost cultish, the way they acted and the way they acted together. I mean, what the hell?
By 19, Vera was lured to the Brooks family home by Cheri. So Vera's mother and stepfather had decided to move away, and the young woman, who didn't have a lot of prospects and received $700 or so a month in disability payments, decided to move in with the welcoming Cheri. She was encouraged to date Cheri's 13-year-old son, Zachary. Now, this may seem like a predatory situation, and by law it is. But Vera had the mind of an 8-year-old, which is something I think we should all take into consideration.
Well, I think that's very important to know about Vera, that she had the, limited mental capacity, however you want to say it. But here is, Cheri has no problem. She's still a 19-year-old girl. But I'm going to it's like no different than, I have this dog, I like its physical characteristics. I'm going to go get this other dog and breed them together and get some pups. And I want to keep one of the pups. She's literally picking someone out to mate her son to. I mean, don't
No, you're absolutely right.
It
and
just blows my mind.
We'll get into more of that here in just a minute. Zachary, like the other Brooks children, was heavily influenced by his mother. Anything that Cheri said was gospel, even when they knew it was untrue.
Well, that's the aspect that really blows my mind. Even in hindsight, these people will be like, "Oh yeah, she was this, that," kind of like she did all these things, like they know it's wrong or wasn't right.
They know she's a liar,
but they went
still
along.
go along with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one questioned Cheri. You didn't want to be on the receiving end of her wrath. To describe the Brooks family as a cult is not an exaggeration. Cheri was manipulative, exerted an authoritarian type of control over her children. And looks can be deceiving. Cheri is in a wheelchair and disabled, yet she is also a sadist, a psychopath, a pedophile, and a criminal mastermind.
She is all those things with bad feet.
They lived in... We'll get into that, Dylan. They lived in the communal setting of her home, with Cheri controlling every aspect of their lives. Somehow Cheri managed to become guardian to Vera, which included taking over the young woman's finances.
So she's exerting control, manipulating her and getting where she kind of traps her in this situation to where she can make her do what she wants.
And she takes over the girl's money.
Yeah, she's taking over her finances, her money. She does have a limited mental capacity. So, yeah, I mean, she's almost a perfect victim, even though I hate to say it like that.
No, I mean, that's a terrible way to describe it, but it's a very accurate way. You know what I mean? Well, Cheri Brooks and her family had gamed the system for years. Each of her children were receiving some type of disability payment. No one had a job. They lived off welfare, food stamps, disability payments, and whatever funds they scraped up through their criminal enterprises, which included drug dealing and thievery. Cheri encouraged her sons to have babies. She was dying for a baby girl. Vera would remain with the Brooks family for 5 years until her death. So here's just an example of Cheri Brooks. Gina Lopez was a young woman who dated Cheri's son, Garth. Garth Brooks?
Garth Brooks.
Yes, that's his real name.
Why wouldn't it be?
Of course. So Gina becomes pregnant with Garth's baby. When she did, the Brooks gang started stalking and threatening the young woman. Cheri was convinced if the child was female, Gina needed to hand the baby over to Cheri. And eventually, Lopez suffered a miscarriage from all the stress.
Well, yeah, I mean, you literally have people stalking or waiting for you to come to work. They're there when you, and she would assign people. Okay, even her youngest, Chucky. Well, he's one of the younger kids in the lot. You have stalking duty. You need to get down there and be outside where she works when she gets off.
Stalking and threatening.
Follow her home.
Yep.
Tell us where she goes. Tell us every move she's making. That's pretty damn crazy.
Well, it seems Cheri Brooks would go to extremes to obtain a baby girl. While in the Brooks home, Vera was a slave, essentially. All chores were performed by Vera. Cleaning, taking care of the animals. They had a pig in the house, which did its business wherever it felt.
Because it's a pig?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you can train pigs. They're actually rather smart, but there's a fucking pig in the house. And it had like a closet where it stayed, which I'm sure smelled like a pig.
Yeah. And massaging Cheri's feet were just a few of the tasks that she was expected to perform. So, by the way, the Brooks home looks like a horror movie house. It's dilapidated, nasty.
Hasn't been painted in
Probably
decades.
100 years.
What's weird about it is this seems to be just a normal blue-collar neighborhood. Regular folk all around them. All the houses on either all around it look normal.
Look normal, decent, nice.
Maintained.
Nice
decent.
Yards.
And then you got
clean
this
property.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre house right here in the middle of them.
That is exactly what the house looks like.
That's exactly what it looks like. Yard unkept, just
Trash
stuff piled
everywhere,
up. Yeah.
nasty, overgrown yard.
Yeah, but man, you were talking about she has 4 or 5 kids.
Oh, she's got there's probably 9 people living in this house.
And then Vera, and then her. They are probably bringing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month into this household.
We did the math. If at minimum they're all bringing in $500 to $700 a month for their disability, I mean, they're probably bringing in somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 a month.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that they get food stamps, probably have Medicaid,
all that stuff.
and yet they live like fucking slobs.
They do.
Like, I wouldn't even call them slobs. I don't even know what is the proper term for these people. They live in squalor.
They live in squalor, and just like things like maintaining the home or just general maintenance don't even cross their mind. And that's the only way you could live like that with that amount of money coming into a household.
And I'm thinking, where do they spend the money but drugs?
Drugs, buying, you got to have, if you're in the Crips, you have to pay dues every year.
Do you?
No, I'm just making that up. And you have to buy equipment.
Well, you would know because you were in that gang.
The Loco Lizards.
The Loco Lizards.
We will send people, we'll put a picture of my gang tats on Mountain Murders on our social medias.
On Instagram?
Yeah.
On the gram?
Yeah. But just, keep that. My boys find me, I could be in trouble because it's blood in, blood out.
Okay, so when you were a member of the Loco Lizards, you had dues to pay. It was like a fraternity. Like
yes,
you had monthly dues.
You have equipment.
Annual dues.
You have equipment.
Blue bandanas.
Well, our colors weren't blue.
Well, I'm just saying.
Hey, I don't want to piss off any like real gangsters because I'm tripping. I'm just kidding. But yeah, you got to buy bandanas. You can't. You got to buy the pants with the bedazzles on them and stuff. Wife beaters already pre-stained. I mean, that stuff doesn't come cheap.
You're right. Yeah, a lot of boxer shorts so that, they
oversized boxer shorts.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, during her time in the Brooks home, Vera was severely abused. She was berated, beaten, assaulted, and raped by the various Brooks boys. In a 2-year period, the police were called to the home at least 10 times for domestic violence allegations. Vera had been repeatedly questioned by police and social workers. There was no denying the physical signs of abuse, but Cheri would threaten Vera, refusing to allow Vera to speak to police unless she was there. And often Vera would just give an excuse, like, I fell down the stairs.
Yeah, so even if a cop tries to ask you questions, what's going on, and you literally turn to someone, like for permission to speak, that's when a cop's got to be trained enough to be like, hey, I need to separate these people. I need to talk to you alone. I want you to go over here. You're going to come outside with me. I'm going to figure out what's really going on. These are signs of severe control and abuse.
Exactly.
It's no different than a woman, a woman turning to her abusive husband. It's abuse.
I don't understand why social workers, police officers did not make an effort to separate these people from Vera so that she could speak freely.
Yeah, because she's reaching out for help the best that she can. And then it's almost like they just get tired of dealing with it. And plus they got all these other hooligans around this house, causing trouble, neighborhood fights, just whatever. Everybody knows that house where the cops are 3 or 4 times a month. But yeah, I don't understand. And they're aware of her limited mental capacity. But then they also say, well, she's 20.
She's 24.
She's 21. She's 24. Yeah. That doesn't jive for me. Because that should be all the more reason for you to separate, figure out what's going on, get social services involved, make sure this poor woman's okay.
Exactly. You're exactly right, Dylan.
Oh, my God.
Vera asserted that she was fine living in the Brooks home, that she liked it there, she wanted to stay. And like you said, Dylan, due to Vera's age, nothing further was done to protect her. At no time did law enforcement ever separate Vera from Cheri, question her privately, or offer her a safe place to go. I mean, you would think these social workers or these police officers would say there are resources available. We can get you into a halfway house. There are places for domestic violence victims to go. We can get you into a group home for people with special needs.
Even if you have to lie to these people she's living with, say she's going to be put under arrest, make up something. I mean, cops do it sometimes anyway when they're just tired of dealing with it. If a lot of states have mandates now that the state actually takes control of the situation and charges and things like that because they are tired of it over and over, or the fear that comes along with this for someone to actually prosecute. So they actually bring the charges and you can't do anything about it. Just get her out of that situation somehow, some way.
Yeah, it's very disappointing.
Even for the night. I mean, just, my gosh.
By the time Zachary was 17, Vera Jo had gotten pregnant. Cheri told Vera if she were to deliver a female baby, the child would belong to Cheri. Cheri told Vera she could not be the child's mother and would have no contact with the baby. Vera had a difficult pregnancy, and Vera did deliver a daughter named Willadine a month early. Now get this. A month early because Cheri forced her to drink 3 bottles of castor oil to induce labor. It's an old midwife's trick, but the usual dose is like a teaspoon.
A teaspoon.
Versus 3 bottles.
I don't even know. She's forced her to have this baby up to almost a month early.
Which can be very dangerous.
So it's very dangerous. It's never good when a child comes more than, that early. They need to stay in the womb as long as they can. And, just to be born on her birthday. Who even thinks
Cheri
like
was
that?
tired of waiting for this baby to be born, and she wanted the child to arrive on her birthday, like it was her baby on her birthday. Willadine was born the day after Cheri's birthday. Because she was premature, Willadine spent time in the NICU. And when the baby was cleared to go home, Cheri immediately assumed care of the child. She told Vera not to interact with the baby unless she was given permission by Cheri. Cheri told everyone that Willadine was her baby. If Vera even looked in the child's direction, Cheri would order that Vera be punished with beatings.
How horrible. You just had this baby. You had a tough time during your pregnancy, but she's here now. She's doing better.
She's thriving.
Born early, but now she's thriving, like premature babies typically do, thrive and move quicker now. And you can't even interact with your own child without someone letting you or telling you everything you can and can't do with your own child.
No option to breastfeed the baby.
No one has that right. No one has that right.
It's heartbreaking. Because I'm sure that Vera Jo would have been the best mommy she could have been to her baby.
She would have been a
given
sweet
the opportunity.
mom who would have done everything she could for her child. She was a good person.
The filthy conditions in which the baby was being raised did not go unnoticed. There were roaches. Dirty mattresses were on the floor with rotting food all around. The bathtub was covered in black mold. The sour stench inside the house was sickening. At least 10 people were living in the home. Again, because Cheri refused to allow her adult children to move out. Again, she's just got to be in control of everything. Along with pigs and dogs.
Yeah, and she's been, sounds like, treating these kids like this their entire life. That's why they're willing to keep up her game to do what she said, because they've been treated and abused. They've all been abused in some way, some form or fashion, it sounds like. And that's why they're willing to listen to her bullshit.
There was drug and alcohol abuse inside the house, as well as domestic violence. However, Child Protective Services didn't take Willadine away because Cheri was Vera's guardian, and Zachary was the child's father. So by law, Zachary had rights to this baby. So they just weren't going to remove it. Of all the Brooks children, the only one who was able to stand up to his mother was Punky, or Kevin Jr.
Oh, the infamous Punky.
Punky reportedly was a Crip gang leader who also ran the Brooks family gang. In the town of Findlay, he was feared. On August 5th of 2010, Punky and his girlfriend Heather, well, that's great, she shares my name, were walking along a dark rural highway to buy some heroin when he was hit by a taxi driver who happened to lose control of the vehicle. Cheri was devastated. She quickly blamed Punky's girlfriend Heather for murdering him.
Who even thinks like that?
She tells everyone that Heather pushed Punky in front of the car, though the woman repeatedly denied this. It had been an accident.
Well, I think even the cab driver is like, this is my version, it was an accident. I lost control. I didn't see him on the side of the road or whatever. So, you have these real accounts of it, but it's what was in her head, what the narrative she wanted to, this is what she thought.
You got
she didn't.
Facts and you got fake news, Dylan.
It's true. But yeah, it's whatever Cheri says goes. And she believed it for whatever reason. And she tells everyone that Heather pushed her son, Punky, the matriarch of the family, kinda.
Well, Cheri's the matriarch.
The patriarch. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Punky's gonna come kick your ass because you just called him a woman.
Punky ain't kicking nothing because Heather pushed him in front of the cab.
Well, Cheri called up a woman named Marcy, and I think it might have been Punky's baby mama. I'm not 100% sure. Asking her to come over and kick Heather's ass. So the fight was horrific. Members of the Brooks family were standing around watching Heather get the shit beat out of her, and they're shouting, "Curb stomp her."
They really wanted to curb stomp her like they've seen in movies.
Yeah.
Or heard about.
The whole duration of this beating, the woman is just pleading for her life and saying that she had nothing to do with Punky's death.
She just lost her boyfriend to an accident, and I'm sure she's sad and tore up about that. And instead of any kind of support or, chance to mourn together with his family, people she knew, they're beating the shit out of her, talking this other crazy stuff that never happened.
I mean, it's just so fucked up.
It blows me away.
Not long after Punky's passing, Cheri asked Vera to help her outside with some chores. They needed to clean a rabbit cage. So during this task, somehow Vera managed to drop some bricks on Cheri's foot. And Cheri has the diabetes.
She has a diabetes foot.
She does.
Not making light of that because it's very serious. But yes, Cheri has bad feet. And one of Vera's chores are maintaining her feet.
Massaging them.
They're just wrapped in dirty bandages.
What else?
Like literally wrapped in dirty bandages. And so, yeah, I guess they had the bricks on top of the rabbit hutch or whatever. And she accidentally, I'm sure, or maybe not. Maybe it's her passive-aggressive way of
being like,
doing something. Fuck you,
fuck
Cheri.
You. Fuck your feet.
So she drops one on her bad feet.
Fuck your feet, bitch.
And once again, an opportunity for Cheri to control the narrative.
Well, Vera said it was an accident, but Cheri launches into a tirade shouting at her, "You fucking bitch! I'm gonna kill you!" Because she just can't be a normal person. Cheri tells everyone in the Brooks family that Vera has purposefully smashed her feet with bricks and rocks, which creates more tension and anger. Then Cheri directs Zachary and others to punish Vera for her misdeed. Cheri also wants full custody of Willadine. She decides Vera needs to be eliminated from the picture. So with Vera out of the way, Zachary would be entitled to full custody of his daughter. Zachary had also, by this time, lost interest in Vera, and he wanted to see other women. Who in their right mind would want him? I have no fucking idea, because he looks like a dead-eyed Lurch from the Addams Family.
He's not handsome.
He is, yeah.
I mean,
I'm just going to say, okay, I know that it is mean and immature to make fun of people's physical appearance.
Well, they're also shitty people, so we're going to do it.
They are. This is the fucking ugliest family of people I've ever seen in my whole life.
It really is.
And everyone, well, I'll get to the resources. One of the resources is a documentary. It's called Goodnight Sugar Babe. And I swear no one in that documentary has ever heard of dental hygiene.
I don't know what's going on there. And like when in the beginning of the show,
a dental debacle in this documentary.
I said we were not going to judge an entire region or city or state by what we're saying about these people. But you just go back and watch this documentary.
Amazon Prime.
And you're going to be like, how is there this many damn trashy people in like one end of the neighborhood?
Well, now here's my thought, Dylan. Someone contacts you and they say, hey, we're going to make this documentary. We would like you to appear. We're going to interview you. What are you going to wear?
My good shirt.
Right? Are you going to comb your hair, brush your teeth, wear a nice shirt?
No matter what my style is or what my income level or anything, I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to look my best, what I consider my best.
Well, being clean does not cost a lot of money, okay? As my great granny always said, soap's cheap, and it is. So these people, everybody in this interview has bedhead, greasy-ass hair, dirty faces, dirty shirts, and they all look like they fucking just rolled out of bed after having crawled through the landfill.
It's true.
On their belly for 6 miles.
It's true.
To be on a documentary, that's how you present yourself?
Well, it's just, it's trash, babe.
Oh, these people are so gross. So, like I said, I don't know who would want Zachary because he looks stank and he looks stupid as fuck.
But they all have like multiple baby mamas and stuff.
Yeah, but did you see them baby mamas?
Well, I'm just saying there's somebody for everybody, I guess.
I guess so.
Punky was the most handsome. And you know what he looks like? Everybody knows that look of that face of that guy who's in whatever Fuzzbuster or, local mugshot app that you have on your phone.
I think Punky sort of looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid that's like adult size. He's got like a big old round Cabbage Patch Kid head.
Oh my goodness.
Don't you think he looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid?
I can't unsee it now.
I think he does.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, anyway. So it doesn't take much effort to sell Zachary on the idea that Vera must die. Cheri begins planting the seeds of murder. So in the meantime, Vera is expected to tend to Cheri's needs, clean the house, do whatever she's told. She is savagely beaten almost daily and never allowed to care for her baby. Someone is always watching the baby. Cheri told Vera if she ever tried to take Willowdene, she would slash the baby's throat.
And this is a extended, a long-term abuse over years. So, I mean, it's not like
5 years of abuse.
Right. So this is, she's been worn down. And just like people's pointed out to us, it's how cults work. She's been worn down. It didn't start out this way in the very beginning. And, but yeah, she just doesn't know what to do. She's scared of everybody. And this house is always full of this family. There's always someone around. It's like she's never left alone. She's not allowed to go anywhere. She's not even allowed to look at people or speak to people she knows.
Vera has been alienated from her own family. Cheri would tell others that she thought Vera looked cute when she had black eyes. It reminded her of a little raccoon.
That's a disgusting thing to say about someone.
On January 21st of 2004, Ashley Messersmith, Vera's sister, contacts Findlay Police Department. Well, I'm sorry, I said 2004. It's actually 2009. I'm sorry. Contacts the Findlay Police Department. Vera has a broken nose, and when Ashley had seen her sister earlier, she was just completely battered and had this broken nose. Ashley is very concerned. She calls police and claims that Vera is being abused, isn't allowed near her own baby. She says Vera is being held against her will. And when cops show up at the Brooks house, Cheri fabricates a story about how Vera's nose was broken and blames it on Vera's boyfriend. She doesn't have a whole lot of detail about this guy other than he was a black guy named Demetrius.
Yeah, so here, this guy nobody's seen or heard about, this random black dude, of course he's black. I mean, that shows you how Cheri thinks. I'll tell the cops it's some black guy that come here and stayed with her. And and he beat her up.
She's like some racist old bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
And Vera was so broken down by the abuse that she agrees that this ex-boyfriend from Lima, Ohio, I think it's Lima, was responsible for the injury. After this incident, Vera had to go to the hospital because her nose was bleeding. She had a giant bump on it, and doctors thought she might even have a concussion. Cheri said the guy was drunk and on drugs, and he started pummeling Vera for no reason. But the real truth is, Zachary had beat the shit out of Vera. Cheri had told her son Zachary that Vera had shoved baby Willowdene into the coffee table. He gets angry. Zachary beats up Vera. Then he phones his Aunt Samantha to come over. And when Vera wouldn't give them any details about this alleged shoving incident, Zachary and his Aunt Samantha proceed to punch her in the face several times. So as you can see, Cheri is the mastermind behind Vera's abuse. She's willing to lie in order to see Vera punished. She's just a fucking sadist. And these people are fucking cruel and dumb enough to go along with it.
Well, they don't know it. They almost don't know any better. Kind of, in my mind. They've been done this way their entire life. They've grown up in this crazy household.
They are ignorant.
And it has left its mark on them, and they are just like a wild pack of animals.
They're like wild dogs.
Yeah.
Just, circling and ready to attack.
Yeah.
At their master's command.
Exactly.
It's true. After Vera arrived home from the hospital, she received another thrashing for having troubled them.
You're going to be... and she... okay. Move on. I don't even know what to say.
Not only was Vera considered their personal slave and beaten regularly, but she was also starved. As a form of punishment, Cheri would deny the woman access to food. Once, in a fit of hunger, Vera ate a Kit Kat bar, which had been placed on a memorial type of altar to Punky. And when Cheri discovered that Vera had eaten Punky's candy bar, a friend of the family was called to come over and punch Vera in the face several times after Cheri ordered it.
Yeah, so here you have this broke-ass altar for her son, her oldest son who's been killed. It had like a Kit Kat bar, a blue bandana. You gotta represent your set.
His ashes.
And
like a cardboard box.
And there's not going to be an urn. Let's be honest. And
probably like an old Swisher Sweet box or something. So a Philly Blunt box.
Well, that was his favorite.
Yeah.
So yeah. And she's like locked in this room, not allowed to eat. She keeps being locked in this room for days on end. Who wouldn't eat the damn Kit Kat bar? I'd eat the damn thing in the first 5 minutes.
I would eat it just because I was hungry or just because I saw it.
I'd be like, hey, Punky's not going to be able to use this.
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, Punky can't eat that fucking Kit Kat.
No.
What the fuck, man?
So yeah, once again, and they have all these different relatives and other baby mamas, ex-girlfriends. I mean, it tells you what kind of people they are, honestly, to where you can just be called, come over here, and here's this poor girl who's looking emaciated and beat multiple times, and one's
black and blue.
No one's ever not seen her beat up or verbally abused, and you're gonna come over and hit her more.
I mean, can you imagine? Like, you get the call, like Cheri's on the phone, like, "Hi, Dylan, this is Cheri. You think you can come over here and beat up Vera because she ate cut Punky Kit Kat?"
Hey, sugar babe, how you doing? How you doing today?
I need you to come over here and do some beating for me.
How's them feet doing?
They're rotten. Can you come over here and beat this girl up?
Oh, but she ate Punky's Kit Kat bar.
Can you believe that bitch ate that 89-cent Kit Kat bar?
Didn't you let her eat last week?
I mean,
that ungrateful bitch.
I don't get it.
No, I don't get it. So that's why I don't feel bad for making fun of all these people directly connected to this family. Because they're pieces of shit. If you can come over and beat on a girl who's already been beat on over some dumb shit like that.
A mentally challenged young woman who is childlike.
You have an adult woman described.
What is wrong with you? If you think that's okay, if you're willing to participate in that,
you're a piece of shit.
You're a piece of fucking shit.
And you have an adult woman described as having the mental capacity of an 8 to 10-year-old. That is not easily overlooked. That's not ever going to go unnoticed. Even people who might be not the smartest people in the world are going to notice that this person is vulnerable, and you would want to go out of your way to take care of them or do for them.
After
to help them
watching
along.
This documentary, I feel like we need to get like a caravan and we need to drive to Findlay. I want to track down all these assholes in this film participated in this beating and fucking round them up.
Because they all recount it.
And be like, you like it?
They seen it happening for years, and no one lifted a finger to help her.
Got a goddamn Kit Kat
that I can tell.
No, they're fucking pieces of shit.
Down to the day when she was murdered.
This is one of the worst cases that we've covered. It just breaks my heart, and it makes me so angry.
The extended abuse over all this time, the varying degrees of it, and what's been described is just sadistic and horrible.
Evil.
And it makes me feel so bad for Vera.
It does.
And any poor little child that's around this at all.
Makes me want to defend her.
Yeah, it does me too.
In a very physically violent way.
Fucking lizards and the Crips, Finley Crips is going to clash, dude.
The local lizards.
That's right. Up? That's right, S.A. What you talking about, S.A.? Don't hit Vera.
What?
Fool. Don't hit Vera, fool.
Don't do that accent.
Oh.
I don't know what that voice is.
Oh, it's like a cholo or some shit. Is that not good?
It's like cultural appropriation, Dylan. I don't like it.
I'm sorry. Well, I'll take that part back.
Things took a turn for the worse in March of 2011. Daniel Bixby Jr., the recently paroled cousin of Cheri, and his 17-year-old girlfriend Nicole Peters were on the lam, running from cops in Tiffin, Ohio. Danny had a lengthy criminal history, and he had assaulted a kid at a park because the child refused to give up a swing for his girlfriend.
That's the kind of people you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Right. Big guy, big badass guy is beating up some kid at the park over a fucking swing.
Yeah.
I
What
mean,
the fuck?
you know, these people that go around being like this tough, and hell, any 5 or 6 people can beat up about anybody. So that don't make you tough if you jump somebody with a group of people.
That's
But
so cowardly.
They always want to go around intimidating people and acting like such badasses, but they're really pussies.
When you have to have a gang
Yeah.
to be a badass, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, it's called, stop trying to act tough.
In 2008, Danny was sentenced to 3 years in prison for breaking and entering, burglary, possessing stolen goods. I mean, he's just doing shitbird shit. So
he's beat this kid up at the park, and the cops are looking for him.
Yep. And he just got out of prison for this whole B&E. He'd served the 3 years. Danny had, like I said, a lengthy criminal record, assault and domestic violence charges dating back to childhood.
Wow.
At one point, he had beaten a 7-year-old with a baseball bat.
Sociopathic.
The guy's fucked up trash. And I should also mention, he sports a teardrop tattoo because he's hard and a killer. But he probably can't even spell the word teardrop because he's fucking stupid. Mouth breather.
Yeah, that's right. I got my mark. I got mine. I'm not afraid to add another.
Yeah, he's like this little scrawny white kid with a fucking teardrop tattoo.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? Take him out of Findlay, Ohio.
Well, now see, this is...
Put him in like a city.
You could go and see this. You see this around here.
Someone would gut him like a fish.
I've seen people like, I'm, these kids run around in these smaller towns or areas out in the country. And that doesn't mean that there's not badass people out there that scare me. There is. But it's just typically not these kids that act like this. Talking about they're in a gang and shit. And if you drop them off in the middle of Compton or some fucking badass neighborhood in New York or some shit.
Like take them down to like
they would
Anacostia,
or south side of Chicago.
DC or something.
Yeah. Claim your set here, bitch, and see what happens. And they would cry. They
Drop
would be
them off at Chula Vista.
Scared to death.
Yeah.
If they saw some real gangsters.
No. I lived in the fucking hood.
Yeah, it sounded like you were in the thick of it out there in Cali.
Well, in D.C., I lived in the fucking hood. There was a damn drive-by shooting that killed like a high school football quarterback less than a mile from my house.
Really?
Like a shopping center. It was a horrible neighborhood, right? And I'm thinking, you bring these little punk asses to that neighborhood?
Right.
They'd be, like I said, this kid would be gutted like a fish the first day that he's there. They'd have fucking, his intestines would be spilled all over the sidewalk. These people are fucking jokes. Well, Danny and Nicole begin staying with Cheri. And so while they're living there, Cheri encourages them to abuse Vera. Knowing that Danny admired his cousin Punky, she fabricates a story that it was Vera who was responsible for the accident that killed him. Cheri says it was Vera who was walking with Punky on the highway that night. It was Vera who pushed Punky in front of the taxi. And everyone knows that this is not true. What the fuck? Yet they all go along with it.
So he's just come home from jail, and she's totally went from, it was his girlfriend Heather, who was actually with him when the accident happened, to it was Vera is the cause of his death.
Yeah.
And everyone around there knows that Vera was at home. She's not even allowed to go anywhere. But they're just going to let this bullshit be fed to this other member of the family. And he's getting all worked up about it. I mean, this is insanity. I mean, it really, truly is.
Nicole has been described by those who knew her as a follower with low self-esteem who would do anything for friends or to fit in. When she met Danny, she was smitten. She was willing to go to any lengths to satisfy him, to make him like her more. She's just a really pathetic person. Nicole quickly inserts herself into the fold, believing everything that Cheri tells her. She's willing to do anything to make the Brooks family like her. And she knows how much Danny loves this family. So she's like 100% on board with whatever it takes. She wants to be accepted. And infuriated Danny relishes in beating Vera. He truly buys that Vera is responsible for his cousin's death. His girlfriend Nicole also seems to enjoy the violence, becoming sexually excited afterwards. The pair hooked a padlock in a belt and would beat Vera with it in the head. They would hit her with a wooden paddle. After, like, a session of abuse, the pair would have, wild, loud, passionate sex. So during the violent bouts of abuse, an excited Nicole would grab Danny and start kissing him. And it seemed like the more extreme the hitting or the violence escalated, the more they were getting their rocks off.
Yeah, some very, very unhealthy characteristics in this entire home, let alone this relationship you're describing here. I mean, who would not only not find it disgusting and want to stop it, but then at the same time, be sexually excited at something like this?
Psychopaths?
Yeah, it's very, very, very strange.
Not normal people?
No, very sick people who have some very significant mental health issues.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Cheri told Nicole, who had only been dating Danny for like a week. Like, that's the thing. He just got out of jail just a couple weeks before this. They have only been together like a week.
See, that's kooky.
Yeah,
it's not even been that long.
Head over heels for this guy that she just met.
So here she is doing whatever his mom says.
Well, his aunt or
I'm
cousin,
sorry. His cousin or his family is saying, and she comes into this household. I don't know if she knew of him or whatever before of the household or anyone there, and just goes along with this very, very severe abuse of a person, of a human being.
So Cheri tells Nicole that Vera has slept with all of the Brooks boys and that she'd sleep with Danny too. A jealous Nicole didn't like this very much. They proceed to beat Vera some more, including what Brooks family members would call mud stomping the woman. Do you know what mud stomping is?
No, did they elaborate?
They were just describing it. It sounds to me like they were basically just stomping her.
Well, it sounds like someone who's been, knocked all the way to the ground, and
you're just on top of this
or
person,
they're almost knocked out, and you're just
stomping.
keeping on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something a coward would do.
The beatings would always take place in Cheri's bedroom. And this is where things get really graphic. So if you are deeply disturbed by depictions of violence,
more graphic,
you might want to skip ahead. I'll give you a second to do so. Danny and Nicole sodomized Vera with a toilet plunger. They raped her with a toothbrush. Though Vera was having her period, then they forced her to brush her teeth with it. I'm absolutely revolted even mentioning this, but I think it's important to understand the level of depravity in this story.
The degradation.
These people are just twisted, disturbed, evil, the worst kind of people.
It's almost like they're trying to one up who has the better, more sick idea to do. I mean, because they've been hitting this girl all this time for years. So, I mean, it's like they're coming up with other things to try because they're getting either physically tired because it's not easy hitting someone. It's physically hard to do that. And just now they're thinking up what other sick shit I can do or who can come up with a more sick idea. It's disgusting.
Well, the day after this significantly, just severe beating, Cheri allowed Vera to go get some lunch at the Salvation Army soup kitchen, which happened to be across the street from the Brooks home. Employees and volunteers who knew Vera were in disbelief, with many of them whispering, "What happened to that poor girl?" One man said Vera looked like she'd been thrown through a car windshield. Every bone in her face was broken. But like usual, Vera wasn't allowed to speak to anyone. In the past, if Vera recognized people at the soup kitchen, even her own relatives, she would pull her hood up over her head and quickly run by saying, "I can't talk to you, I can't talk to you."
Yeah, because she fears the repercussions of if she does anything they tell her not to do.
And this day was no different. One of the Brookses ordered Vera's food. She was not allowed to have contact with any of the staff volunteers the whole time she's at the soup kitchen. And this is where things get weird because there are just so many lies that come into play. I'm going to try to break them down for you. On Saturday, there was a street fight between the Brooks boys and some other neighborhood thugs. After this altercation, Zachary, Danny, and Nicole flee due to outstanding warrants, and they go hide out in Aunt Samantha's house. And I guess she lives nearby. They hide in the basement. After about 2 hours, they were seen walking about 3 miles away near the skate park, which happened to be where the Brooks family liked to hang out.
They like to kick it down there at the concrete jungle.
Yeah, the skate park is also right by the railroad tracks. Danny, Nicole, and Zachary walked down the tracks around 4:30 p.m. Some suggest perhaps this was a scouting walk. They were trying to locate the perfect crime scene. Then the three went to a friend's apartment. His name is Alan Capp, and he also lives by the train tracks. A man named George Speck, who is married to Zachary's cousin, saw the three and offered to give them a ride. After they had found the location and they had a cover story, the plan was set into motion. By 5:15, the house was full of pepper spray, according to Shannon Brooks and Cheri. Shannon is married to Cheri's son, Michael. So that's Cheri's daughter-in-law, Shannon.
Yeah, but I don't have anything good to say about her either.
No, she's just a little bitch.
She's been around all this abuse, and no one's ever reached out to help or done anything to try to help this poor girl.
No, she's trashed you.
To help Vera, yeah.
Now, Scotty disputes this, saying there was never any pepper spray set off inside the home. Around 5:30 p.m., Shannon Brooks arrives at the emergency room. Shannon claims that she is 3 months pregnant. Now, she will later deny this, saying it was just another one of Cheri's lies. But there are some Facebook messages dated March 24th that back up that she herself, Shannon, was spreading this story that she was pregnant.
So either she was pregnant and was telling people, or she's lying about being pregnant, but she did do that to some degree.
She did, even though she adamantly says it was never something she told people, but she fucking did. Okay. So Shannon tells Nicole Peters that Vera had set mace off, this pepper spray off in the house, which caused her to have a miscarriage. She goes to the ER. While she's there, they tell her she's had a miscarriage. She has to have all the procedures. Is it called a D&C, I think?
Yeah.
All that.
Something like that.
Taken care of while she's at the emergency room. She goes back to the Brooks house, and she tells Nicole this story. A furious Shannon tells Nicole, "I'm so mad I could kill her." And it's very easy for Nicole to digest the story because Vera is responsible for everything terrible that happens in the Brooks' life.
Right. Yeah, and you already enjoyed beating her severely. So you don't really even need any kind of motivation or justification. You're a fucked up person as well.
Well, around 6 p.m., Danny and Nicole walk over to his sister's house. Her name is Desta. And while they're there, he tells Desta that the Brooks have been bugging him all day to do something about Vera. The Brooks, mainly Cheri and Zachary, were saying how much they didn't want Vera around anymore. Desta assumed Cheri was just going to kick her out, like, take your baby and go.
Yeah.
I mean, in her mind, she's like, well, okay, well, they're probably just going to tell her to leave, right? Danny said Cheri had even offered him money to take care of Vera. The Mace story was just another justification for their actions against Vera. That's all this is. So around 9 p.m. on Saturday night, Zachary summoned Danny, Nicole, and his brother Garth to Scotty's bedroom. Scotty says he overheard the conversation regarding where they're planning to kill Vera.
Now, one thing I will say about this story is from a true crime aspect. It's kind of interesting. You very seldom get this kind of even though there are lies, you got to sift through people's versions. This kind of a play-by-play before the crime takes place. Right. It's usually the killer or killers, and they either blame each other or who knows who's lying. But very seldom do you have third parties. This many third parties basically know what's about to go down. Witnesses.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting from that aspect, even though it's horrible at the same time.
So Scotty overhears this conversation. They're plotting where they're going to kill Vera. They're mapping it out. They're detailing what is to come. Danny wanted to kill her at Heritage Trail Park, and they checked out that place earlier, and he felt it was a more secluded spot. So that's where he wanted to go. But Zachary insisted on the train tracks, as he planned on the locomotive grinding up Vera's body, so there would be no recognizable evidence of murder, and that perhaps it would seem accidental.
Yeah, which in his twisted mind makes good sense.
And they kept describing it as, she'll look like hamburger.
Hamburger.
And I was thinking, do you mean like ground beef?
No,
Hamburger.
It goes with the helper. That's what Mom makes for dinner.
Hamburger?
Yeah.
Okay.
So So basically, injured or struck by the train, run over by the train to the degree where they don't know what the hell happened. They just know they got a dead person.
Yes.
Basically, it looks like someone got hit by a train or something terrible has happened.
Yes.
Okay.
Vera began to panic as the three barked orders at her. They were like, put your shoes on, kept screaming at her. Zachary told her they were going on a walk. Nicole was cussing, screaming at Vera, put on your fucking shoes. Zachary tells Vera, not to worry, I'm going to go with you guys. But this is not very reassuring to Vera. She is scared. She doesn't want to leave with Zachary. She doesn't want to leave with Danny and Nicole, definitely. It was as if she knew she was being marched to her death. Shannon Brooks said Vera looked to her as if to say, help me. But as usual, no one's going to help Vera.
Yeah, no one even sneaks around or anything and like calls the police, or no one does anything. No one stands up and says, I don't know exactly what's going on, but this is wrong. Stop
Shannon
it.
is sitting on the couch. Vera's putting on her shoes. Vera's looking at her helpless, like, you know, with her eyes, please help me, scared, trembling. And Shannon's just playing on her cell phone. And later she'll say, well, I didn't have minutes on my phone. I mean, I know I could call 911 without minutes on my phone, but I just didn't.
Yeah, fuck you. I mean, really, you're no better than the people who ultimately murder her. I mean, you're really not, in my book.
You're complicit in the murder.
Because you had so many. It's not just this one evening. It's not some crazy out of control night. This has been crazy for years, all this time, and you've been around it and you've never done anything. So fuck you too.
Vera asked Scotty to come along with them because Scotty was kind of the only one in the house that Vera trusted. Like, Scotty was never mean to her. He never abused her. And Scotty said, I need to go upstairs and put my shoes on. He goes upstairs and he's confronted by his brother Zachary, who tells him, you're going to stay home.
You're not going to go with us.
No. Cheri then tells Zachary, you're not going to go either because I don't want you to be part of what's about to take place.
So they've been working on Danny since he got out of jail, come there to stay, place to crash. They've been working on him from day one. There's no doubt in my mind, Cheri. And then it's like it starts with Cheri, and then it like a virus, spreads out. She works each one individually.
She gets her tentacles in each person.
And finally it's almost like this group hysteria of some type. And then I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why they're so willing to be on board with her bullshit every single time.
But look, I mean, for Cheri to be such a fucking dumbass, like when you hear her speak, when you listen to her, when you see her, you're like, oh God. She is smart enough to know she doesn't want Zachary to be part of this.
Right, because she is a manipulator, and she does know that she's got them worked up into enough of a frenzy to get rid of Vera. And she don't even care who's the collateral damage. See, she don't care about them. She don't even care about her own damn kids. It's just to get whatever she wants. And she doesn't care who gets taken down by the fallout.
Danny and Nicole push Vera outside. All the while, Vera was pleading, please let me stay inside. Please don't make me go. She's crying. Nicole told her, you're going to come with us now or I'll crack your head here on this porch. Though it was well below freezing temperatures outside, Danny wore a pair of Punky's blue athletic shorts and a blue bandana to signal this was official Crip gang business.
Some kind of dedication to his brother or something like that?
To his cousin.
To his cousin.
Vera was marched down the train tracks where she was stabbed 6 times in the legs so she couldn't get away. When the knife wasn't making deep enough cuts, Danny and Nicole forced Vera to get undressed. Her clothes were found strewn in the bushes and on the ground. Then Danny mounted her back, stabbing her another 15 times. Then he cut her from ear to ear in a sawing motion with a dull kitchen knife, trying to decapitate her. Danny and Cheri both gave the statements, the knife was too dull. And this detail was something that only the two killers would know, right?
Yeah, you would think so.
If Cheri wasn't there, she doesn't know why they made her take her clothes off.
It's true.
But Cheri's able to say, well, that knife was really dull and, it probably snagged on her clothes and they couldn't get to her flesh.
So they're stabbing her attacking her. Not that a sharp knife makes it better, but I mean, just the idea of a dull kitchen knife.
Well, we know that Cheri is not the kind of individual who's got a set of pristine, sharpened,
maintained cutlery.
Yeah, knife
No.
in her knife works in her house.
No,
or whatever.
and then Danny just grabbed one out of basically the butcher block or the block in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, like a damn probably Walmart.
Yeah.
Cheap ass.
The $16.99 set.
100-year-old knife.
Yep.
Yeah. It's horrific. Vera was left bloody and nude on the tracks, though she was still alive at the time. Now, afterwards, Danny and Nicole went to party. They had already been on a drug-fueled binge powered by alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, and ecstasy for the past 3 days. Danny phoned Alan Cupp, their friend from earlier in the day, to brag about what he had done. And Alan didn't believe him, so he stopped by the house on Center Street. Nicole was smiling and happy, telling everyone, "It's done! It's done!" Danny is patting Zachary on the back. They're high-fiving each other. Everybody's laughing about it. Nicole hugs Cheri and says, "I got my first teardrop," meaning the tattoo, because, Danny has this teardrop tattoo.
Now, this is the level of sophistication we're dealing with. They just marched this poor girl 2 or 3 blocks from their home, where everyone knows she lives at, and people, I'm sure, are aware of a lot of the troubles that's happened, murdered her viciously in an extended attack, and then are calling people and fucking telling them. Telling their buds.
Then they come home to celebrate like they just fucking won the war or something.
Yeah.
Well, they change clothes, and then they head to Desta Bixler's house. And remember, Desta is Danny's sister. On the tracks, Vera is not dead, but she uses her last ounce of energy to move off the rails where they had placed her in like a perpendicular fashion.
They laid her across the rails.
She centered herself and curled up in a fetal position. The 13-inch clearance on the front of the train allowed it to pass over Vera's body without causing any further damage.
Now, she was a petite girl, right? Would you describe her like that? Kind of skinny and stuff.
Well, she was a very thin girl.
So in her last bit of energy, she curled up in the fetal position and drew herself into a tight ball. And this was, I thought, amazing to a degree. It's almost like she used her last ounce of strength against them. And she curled up in a ball, and she was 12 inches high, her body, in the center of the tracks. The train cattle guard, or whatever they call it, cattle catcher, was 13 inches off the ground. There's 1 inch clearance. So the train did not actually contact her body. Therefore, their stupid fucking plan, as far as her getting maimed by the train, didn't happen.
Derailed.
She fucking derailed those assholes.
Derailed, Dylan. Derailed.
Poor Vera.
At Desta's, everybody is partying. Zachary is drinking a fifth of vodka by himself, but he seems withdrawn and is telling the others, "I just want to forget about everything that's happened." And he starts like banging his head against the wall. He's being really sulky, depressed. And Desta is like, what's going on with him? Normally Zachary's like easygoing party guy.
So Danny's sister, Desta?
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a little bit of sense.
She
like
seems
the
only
have
one that seems
some
like
sense.
she has any sense.
Like be a halfway normal person.
So she's just like, what the fuck is his problem? And asks her brother, why is he so sad? That's when Danny explains, "I slit that bitch's throat." Talking about Vera. It was Desta Bixler who reported the crime to police. Danny and Nicole were promptly arrested and charged with aggravated murder. After being arrested, Danny and Nicole tell police the story Cheri has devised about needing to kill Vera because she had caused Shannon Brooks to miscarry, along with pushing Punky in front of the taxi and, of course, causing Cheri foot injuries. The other family members corroborated the story. However, community members felt Cheri had killed Vera just so she could have full custody of the baby, of Willowdene.
Right. Yeah.
And that it had nothing to do with, Punky's death or a miscarriage, that Cheri just wanted to have that baby.
This was all a long play to get someone to get mad enough at Vera to do this for her, because she simply wanted that little girl for herself.
Police learned the Mace story was unlikely, and in the end, Cheri Brooks and other family members were charged with obstructing justice. Danny Bixler received a 40-year sentence, while Nicole's is 23 years for murder. Zachary Brooks was not charged with murder. Instead, he was charged with lying to police.
So didn't he get some years?
I think it was
4 years.
I think 4 years.
4 years for obstruction of justice.
At the trial, the prosecutor read a note found in Vera's purse. It said, "I love you, Willadine. You are a good little baby girl to us. I'm glad to be your mommy, and I'm glad that I had you on November 4th at 4:16 a.m., 6 pounds, 2 ounces, 19 inches long. Mommy loves you."
Man, how sad is that?
In 2015, Cheri Brooks was sentenced to 40 months in prison for drug trafficking charges while she was already on probation. She, Kevin Sr., and Scotty were caught selling generic Xanax out of the Brooks home. Cheri also spent 10 days in prison for inappropriate contact with an unrelated minor in 2014, which was another violation of her probation.
But she's still manipulating the system even to the very end there, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So what was the motive? Even the judge didn't understand why Vera was murdered. The only ties the pair had to Vera, meaning Danny and Nicole, was through Cheri Brooks. 24 hours after Vera's death, Cheri was on the phone requesting that her son Zachary be granted full custody of baby Willadine. Fortunately, Child Protective Services removed Willadine from the home. In order to prove Zachary was a fit parent, he was required to have supervised visits with his daughter. He failed to appear for the second visit after the first failed miserably. The first visit was cut 15 minutes short due to Willadine's hysterical reaction when she saw her father and her refusal to be touched by him. The court ruled against Zachary's custody, and she was put up for adoption.
That little baby knew. She knew that her mom was gone and that these people aren't any good. I don't care if that's her biological dad or not. She knew.
Well, even as a little baby, I mean, she's, at this point,
she's feeding off energy.
15, 16 months old.
She's been nothing but scared by these damn people. She's seen her mom be hit.
Yeah.
Abused by Zachary as well. Yeah.
Well, her little spirit can feel them.
No, she knows.
She knows they're evil. Danny and Nicole were nothing more than thugs who were ordered by their cult leader, Cheri, to carry out a heinous task. Some believe everyone in the house should have been charged with participating in Vera's murder. Everyone involved watched years of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse towards Vera, yet no one intervened on the woman's behalf. Everyone in this poor woman's life failed her.
It's true. The system, the people around her, her friends and family that didn't seem like they could do anything. Her sister tried to point out, hey, the abuse, this is what's happening to my sister. It just didn't work. And then Cheri, if I'm not mistaken, even with those drug charges and stuff, she still basically stayed out of jail, right? Because of her failing health, I believe.
Yes.
So in the end, the main cause of all this, which is Cheri, Sugar Babe,
is free.
Which is messed up.
It's very messed up. And so she's still free, wandering around Findlay.
I'm sure manipulating and fucking up other people's lives. Man.
She's a piece of shit.
Damn, this is like one of maybe the most messed up stories we've ever told.
It's very emotionally draining.
Yeah.
This story.
It is.
The research, it's been like a troubling story. And my heart is broken for poor Vera and this poor baby. And I'm really glad that the only silver lining is that in this whole story is that Willadine was put up for adoption and hopefully is with a family that loves her and is taking care of her.
There's no way she wouldn't have been abused and who knows what else if she'd stayed anywhere near this family. No way. Cheri makes it obvious. She's abused. She's a serial abuser of children. She's a manipulator. She's just a sick, twisted individual.
A blight on society.
Yes. Yes.
She's like a cancer that needs to be removed.
Well, let alone all the societal resources and stuff spent on a family of shitbirds like this when there's people out there who need help and can't get it.
Right.
My God.
So they get disability for just being ugly and dumb.
Yeah, what the fuck, dude? You got all these young men running around and they're able-bodied.
Straight thugging.
Straight thugging. Hey, if you can run the streets, you can run down to McDonald's and work a damn job, right?
You can run to the car wash.
I said them people stand on the corner everywhere you look, man. And I know some people need help. And when I see someone I think they need help, I give it a little bit if I can. But when I see damn 20-some-year-olds and able-bodied standing at intersections with their hand out, I'm just like, dude, you could have went right over to that McDonald's and made $11-12 an hour today, dude. What the hell? Shit, joke's on me. They're probably making $600 a day.
Probably.
Oh, man.
Well, my primary resource, again, I mentioned before, was the documentary Goodnight Sugar Babe, as well as newspaper articles on the murder. There's quite a few out there. I mean, it's a rather, recent case, so there's tons of media coverage. And there's a Facebook group dedicated to Vera, Justice for Vera.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Because a lot of people in the community are still rallying for something to be done.
Well, they still don't think enough's been done. I agree with them.
I agree as well.
More people. You could have put charges on everyone anywhere near that house of some type. But, there is also the law. It's written a certain way. And sometimes
there are people in prison for lesser.
That's true.
Reason.
That's very true.
So I think the entire system in this community is just stupid.
And again, we love Ohio. We're not going to hold Ohio or Findlay, Ohio, up.
We're not.
Not for these people's bullshit. We love Ohio, been through there many times, and be through there again.
We're not going to eat at White Castle.
Lots of good people in Ohio.
When we go to Ohio.
That's
my
true.
only request.
I'm not going to do that.
But I will have some Skyline chili.
Oh, yeah. Give me some Skyline chili.
Okay. Well, that has been the story of Vera Jo Reigle. Really super sad story. And I know it's a fucked up story. And I hope that you aren't too drained having heard this. It's really graphic. There's a lot of detail. And I was kind of on the fence about, do I include this stuff or do I leave it to people's imagination? But I just feel like...
You couldn't imagine this shit.
It's important to know, just how sick these individuals are.
I mean, you really wouldn't... This stuff wouldn't come to you. It wouldn't.
No, I couldn't think of this kind of cruelty.
No, not just over and over and over again. The lies, the obvious manipulation. Yeah, you couldn't.
All right. You can find us anywhere you download podcasts, of course. Check out our Facebook page. We are on Twitter, Find Mountain Murders. You can also find us on Instagram. We post a lot of little memes and funny things there. Yeah,
and if you get a chance, give us a rating and a review on any whatever service you do listen to. Apple, Spotify, whatever.
Google.
Podchaser. There's a lot of them.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere, but and also if you will hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Mountain Murders.
It's true. We love those 5-star reviews.
We've had some great ones.
We have. Thanks for all of those. And we'll be back on Wednesday with a brand new offbeat. We have a pretty interesting topic to talk about this week.
Oh my gosh, are we going to do that one we were talking about doing?
Yeah, you know the one.
Ooh, that's very interesting.
Okay. Take care, guys.